Today on the Locked On Blues podcast, Robert Bortuzzo signs an extension. Logan Brown signs an extension. Scott Perunovich continues to rehab his injury. All of that and a lot more on a action-packed episode. Make sure you stay tuned.
You're Locked On Blues, your daily podcast on the St. Louis Blues. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Locked On Blues podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network and your number one source for daily Blues content. I'm Josh Hyman.
And I'm Thomas Welch.
And we got a unexpectedly busy episode for you guys today. Woke up expecting it to just be another slow news day, and then boom, two extensions right to start the day. Logan Brown, 1-year extension, and Robert Bortuzzo, a 2-year extension. We're going to be talking about all of that. We're going to be talking about Scott Perunovich continuing to rehab his injury, what that might mean for his development and his future with the Blues. All that and more. But first, I want to thank anyone and everyone out there for making Locked On Blues your first listen, because we are free and available on all podcast platforms. Make sure you check out Olympic Hockey Daily, presented by Locked On NHL, a bonus podcast covering all the action in Beijing. You can find it on the Locked On NHL podcast feed. And today's episode is brought to you guys by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, Tommy, so 2 contract extensions announced today by the St. Louis Blues. Seemingly minor deals on the surface, but 2 guys that have kind of been glue guys this season, as described, I think, by Jeremy Rutherford or Luke Korak in one of his tweets. First one I want to talk about is Robert Bortuzzo. Bortuzzo was making, I think, $1.75 million this year, something like that. Took a pay cut on his extension. Will be getting paid $950,000 each year. This or next year and the year after that will be $35 when the contract ends. Not a significant contract at all. Definitely just seems like a guy they want to keep around in that 6th, 7th D spot. But like we said, a glue guy has had a really strong year this year after seeming like he was looking at the wrong side of his prime last season. Has definitely picked things up this year. Tommy, what are your thoughts on the Robert Bortuzzo contract extension?
I think the impact that he has on this team is extremely underrated, and solely because not only is this guy, I know a lot of Blues fans, myself included, are looking for help for this team at the trade deadline, and specifically in terms of a lockdown defensive defenseman, someone that's going to block shot, someone that's going to hold down the fort there, and not give not give the puck away. And Robert Bortuzzo has done that this season. Obviously, he's on the 3rd pairing. So, take his skill, his age, all those things into consideration. This is a great deal for the team. And with a guy like Pat Maroon, who is your stereotypical glue guy, I think so many articles came out after the Blues won the Stanley Cup that players and coaches alike said that Pat Maroon was one of the best teammates that they ever had. I think the Blues view Robert Bortuzzo in that same kind of fashion. We saw the practice. The question at practice today was describe Robert Bortuzzo in 3 words, and I think half of them were "what a legend." So I think that kind of just says right there everything you need to know about the Blues' opinion of him as a teammate, what he brings to the penalty kill, and what he brings in experience to this team. I think he's the oldest guy on the Blues currently. Obviously has Stanley Cup experience, so
Is he older than Posey?
He might. He's the oldest.
You keep talking. I'll look.
He's the oldest tenured St. Louis Blues.
Longest tenured
right?
member.
Yeah, gotcha, exactly. Gotcha. I think Posey is older than him. But to my point, what was I gonna say?
Oh, sorry.
I
threw you.
No, you're okay.
For a loop.
You're okay. So he's got the Stanley Cup experience, right? There, here we go. So he's got the Stanley Cup experience, and we keep saying that in interviews and all that stuff. Doug Armstrong is like, our Stanley Cup window is like 2 to 3 years time frame. We've kind of viewed it as 2023 being the last year, with Ryan O'Reilly's contract being up, Tarasenko's contract being up, now Barbashev's contract being up. It's a very dicey situation. So to see Robert Bortuzzo extended kind of past that window makes me think that not only do they value his leadership in the room, his glue guy personality is, I mean, I don't think there's anything more electric. Maybe a hat trick is the one thing, or a shutout. I don't even think a shutout, honestly, because Bortuzzo goals are more rare than a shutout for sure. So I think the hat trick would be the only thing that's a more rare occurrence for the St. Louis Blues than Robert Bortuzzo scoring a goal. But every time he does, it's an electric celly, and all the boys are uh, extremely excited for him. So I think taking that all of those things into consideration when the Blues are going to start forming their new core and that speed base kind of building around Jordan Kyrou and Robert Thomas and Scott Perunovich, although he's on injured reserve right now, obviously hoping for a fast, quick recovery from whatever is ailing him. Hopefully, it's not the same shoulder that he had surgery on. I think Bortuzzo is going to be a part of that. And we've seen them be a pairing throughout the course of the season when Perunovich was healthy. Berube came out today and said Perunovich is a player when he's healthy, but he's just not healthy right now. He's not ready to go. So I think I don't know if Bortuzzo's kind of taken him under his wing, but from the way that they interact, their pairing, the way that they play together, and this contract extension, I would wager that he has done so.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we'll get into the Scott Perunovich stuff later, but I think you hit on some really good points there. And it's not always as simple as how good of a player are they on the ice. Like, obviously, there are times when Robert Bortuzzo has frustrated us as fans, and like especially more last season, it's been like, man, this guy seems like he's doesn't really have a spot in an NHL lineup anymore. But then you
I'm
think
just gonna
about
drop a stat real fast for you. So
yeah,
we were
hit
looking
me.
it up before this podcast, right? And I think one of the biggest reasons that uh, fans were a little disappointed with Robert Bertuzzo last year was he had 18 giveaways in 40 games. So this season in 37 games he has 8 giveaways. So drastically different numbers. And like I said, what he brings to you on the penalty kill in terms of veteran experience, it's fantastic to have that guy on the team, be a glue guy, build that chemistry, and to have him at 950,000 a year is even better.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think yeah, I think like I was saying, like the off the ice stuff, the intangibles, you can't really, chalk that up to anything you witness on the ice. It's just who do guys like playing with? Who is gonna rally, their line mates, their teammates to go out there and have fun. And Robert Bortuzzo seems like a guy that everybody in the locker room loves. Um, so it definitely makes sense, especially with a potential change in leadership as the years go by. You'd want a guy like Robert Bortuzzo in the locker room. Yeah, sure, he's no Ryan O'Reilly skill wise, but leadership wise, camaraderie wise, he might be on the same level as a guy like Ryan O'Reilly. We just obviously don't see that stuff because we only get to watch them play on the ice. We don't see the practices, we don't see the locker room conversations, we don't see the group chats with the other players. Like, there's so much that goes on beyond the little 2 hour window 3 days a week that we get to see into as fans. So Robert Bortuzzo, being treated this well by management, by the organization, shows that there might be a little more to it than him just going out there and hacking guys and taking penalties like we like to get on him about. So I'm happy to see him extended, and it's not like it's a big contract. If he really falls off a cliff next season, you can, if you have to, you can bury him in the AHL, you can waive him or you can trade him. So it's a win-win contract for the St. Louis Blues for sure. Another contract the St. Louis Blues signed was one of Logan Brown, sort of an opposite story. Young guy who hasn't really fully broken into the NHL yet, former 11th overall pick, had a really strong year with the Blues and limited appearances this year. So we're going to be talking about that and more. But first, I want to tell you guys about Primal. Got beard, get Primal. You heard me right. Got beard, get Primal. If you or someone you care about has a beard, it needs to get Primal. Maybe you're that guy who has never considered the benefits of treating your beard with product. Primal Origin Oils will stop the itch and make your beard look healthy and groomed. Their products are free from harmful synthetic ingredients with low impact on our planet. Primal Origin Oils makes balms, oils, and whipped butter that are renowned as the best feel in beard products available. All products are fair trade certified and handcrafted in the USA. Plus, the combo kits will make a great holiday gift. If you're shopping for yourself, you'll be glad that you did. We know that every company claims to have the best, but Primal Origin Oils challenges you to compare their ingredients and feel in the beard to other products you've used. So remember, the code is locked on, gets you 20% off at primaloriginoils.com. Use the code locked on at checkout for 20% off, and we'll be right back. All right, Tommy. So Blues signed an old guy in Robert Bortuzzo. No offense, Robert, if you're listening. You're still young at heart. And then they flip the script and sign one of their younger guys, Logan Brown, who's played in 17 games for the St. Louis Blues this season. Has had stretches where he's looked like a really strong contributor. Has had stretches where he looks like he's not quite ready for the big league just yet. All in all, the hometown kid seemed like he was psyched to play here, psyched to continue to play here with that contract. What do you like about the Logan Brown signing?
I like a lot of things. Number one, obviously, the one thing that jumps out off the page when you talk about Logan Brown is the size, right? I mean, the dude is a big body. Your stereotypical like 1980s, oh, this guy's going to be good just because he's big type of hockey player. But he's got the skill to go with it as well. We've seen his shot at times. He's got a pretty lethal shot. He's got pretty silky mitts for a big man. Honestly, like his archetype reminds me a lot of Tage Thompson, which I know has a bad taste in a lot of Blues fans' mouths after he came out and said he was being pigeonholed. But you look at the season he's having with the Buffalo Sabres this year. He's been tearing it up, at least for the first part. I haven't checked in on him lately, but he was scoring goals left and right and was one of their top point getters for their while there, I think. So that's not to say that Logan Brown is destined for the same kind of future, or he could be better, he could be worse. But I think him being a hometown guy, playing for the team that he grew up rooting for, and like skating here his whole life, I think that benefits the Blues. $750,000 for a 1-year contract that's easy money to throw at a guy that is still young and was highly touted, like you said, as a first round pick. And he's shown that he's capable of holding his own on this team. And I think Berube said that he's a third liner and up, so you don't want to throw him in there on the fourth line and kind of diminish his minutes. You want to give him an opportunity to exceed. And so I think that's why we haven't seen him in a while. But also, if you guys remember, the trade was Zach Sanford for Logan Brown and a 4th-round conditional pick. So if he hits the 30 games mark, the 30 games played this season mark, the Blues will forfeit that conditional pick, I believe. So I don't know if that's I don't know if that's something that coaches take into consideration, but I know Doug Armstrong's thinking about that, and I feel like you kind of have to, right? Especially because the Blues this upcoming draft don't have a second rounder. I think that was in the Buchnevich trade, so they have a first, a third, a fourth, a fifth, and a sixth. So if they keep this pick, they'll have 2 fourths. And I don't know, there's some kind of like jostling there, but like if you trade, realistically, you could trade a third, a fourth, maybe throw a fifth or a sixth in there and get back into the second round, which the Blues have done pretty good at drafting in the second round. If you remember a couple guys named Vince Dunn and, Jordan Kyrou. So that could be an option for the St. Louis Blues moving forward, but that also means that you're going to have to stifle the minutes, and not only minutes, but the games that Logan Brown sees. So maybe throwing him this extension is saying, here's a like olive branch of goodwill. We believe in you. We want you to be a part of this team. We don't want you to feel down just because you're not playing, but we need that 4th-round pick.
Yeah, I mean, for a team like the St. Louis Blues that are, contending, especially in a division like the Central, where I looked at the standings today, they're in a wild card spot. I didn't even know that. I thought they would be doing much better. And just, you kind of escaped my mind over the past week or so without hockey. It's easy
There's
to
a
forget
lot
that,
of fluctuation.
Right. So if I'm the St. Louis Blues, which unfortunately I'm not the organization. But if I were to be the St. Louis Blues, Doug Armstrong in particular, I'm looking at Logan Brown not as player X plays 30 games, we get a 4th-round pick. I'm looking at Logan Brown purely for what he brings as a player, and if the cards happen to fall in the sense that, game 80, Logan Brown's played 29 games, and you're like, oh, we could call up Logan Brown, or we could call up Dakota Joshua. Then maybe you're looking at like, okay, yeah, let's leave him down in the AHL. But with the way that the Blues are positioned in the standings, I don't really think you can look, especially for a 4th-round draft pick, I don't think you can look that far in the future. Be like, oh, this guy really should playing and he'll help our lineup. But that 4th-round pick could be more beneficial. Now, if the window really is, till 2023, a 4th-round draft pick in this year's draft will not be contributing to that window unless the greatest draft steal in the history of the NHL occurs. So it would be great if they had an extra 4th round pick. It would also be great if Logan Brown earned his way to play 13 more games this season, because as it's looking right now, unless, he gets himself a game or two and lights it up or disaster strikes, I don't think Logan Brown's hitting that 30 game mark this season. So I don't really think you can look at it from that standpoint, because first of all, I don't think the Blues are going to have that choice to make. I don't think they're really going to have to say, oh man, we could really use Logan Brown, but that 4th round pick's looking real tempting. But it's definitely a nice benefit. Our depth was so good that we kept this guy that produced for us. We kept him down in the AHL. Sucks for him, of course, but got a 4th round pick for it. And, next season, whatever, maybe the lineup looks a little different. He's a little bit more developed. You get him in there, you put him on the 3rd line, and he plays well. And then after that, you say, hey, you're ready for some consistent AHL or some consistent NHL time. You're in your hometown. Sign a long-term deal with us. But yeah, it's definitely sort of a stepping stone, I think, for what could be a potentially career in St. Louis for Logan Brown, at least for the next few years. If he ever cracks an NHL lineup, I think it would be with the St. Louis Blues. I don't know if it's going to be next year, but it's exciting to see for sure. I like to see those depth guys getting signed. We've seen the Blues kind of struggle with their depth at defense this year, and guys getting called up that have no business being an NHL defenseman and look like that. So the fact that the forward core is as pretty much solidified as it is for the next 2-3 years is nice.
Yeah, and I think when it comes to Logan Brown, and I just want to clarify real fast. I don't think that the Blues, Craig Berube and Doug Armstrong will like purposefully inhibit the team and say like, oh, like Logan Brown is tearing it up right now, but like you said, he's at 29 games, so we can't play him anymore. I think they're going to do whatever it takes to win a Stanley Cup, and if that means playing Logan Brown, they're going to play him 45 games or whatever the limit is. But like you said, I don't know if he cracks the roster right now, so it doesn't look like it's likely. And if you can put someone in that provides the same kind of impact that Logan Brown currently has on a game, I think they'd probably do that.
Right.
Or go with that just so you do get the 4th round pick. And so that's kind of what I was saying there. But I do think that Logan Brown has a bright future ahead of him, especially in St. Louis, where it seems like hockey stars are just bred and born here. So dude, the heartland of hockey has been pumping out some bangers lately, and I think Logan Brown could absolutely be the next one to fall in line with that. But dude,
yeah,
I'm just excited for the future in general.
Those big forwards have typically had a bit of a shifted development in compared to some of the more skilled guys. Look at Tage Thompson. Looked like he had no business even in the AHL just a few seasons ago. I don't remember what he had with the Blues, but he had like 7 points in like 40 games in the AHL as a former 1st round pick, and we were like, okay, this is concerning. And then he goes to Buffalo and continues to struggle a little bit, and all of a sudden this year he's like, oh yeah, I'm not just tall, I'm good at hockey. So he goes and he produces. So we could see a similar trajectory for Logan Brown. Former 11th overall pick, has definitely shown flashes with the St. Louis Blues. Who knows? Maybe it's just a little bit of a shifted timeline for him, and 3 years from now, Logan Brown will be a 25 goal scorer with the Blues. You never know. Speaking of though prospects and exciting players, a guy that we were really excited about just a few months ago in Scott Perunovich. I think we made some very bold claims on this podcast about him competing for a Calder and all that.
I don't know what you're talking about. Was that you?
Maybe, but also maybe not. Maybe it was us as a collective. Like
I think
the royal we.
I will put my hand up and say that, unfortunately, and I just want to apologize on behalf of Josh, who made such outrageous claims that it does not look like Scott Perunovich will be in the Calder Trophy contention for this season. I don't know if we we definitely did. You definitely did specify
me
that it was this season.
All right, somebody.
So I wanted to be the bigger person
in our
here.
YouTube comments, if that episode is up on YouTube.
I didn't want to call out names here, but Josh wanted to be vague.
Listen.
I just wanted to stand up for what was right.
Someone out there remembers better than we do which one of us was the conductor on the Scott Perunovich for Calder locomotive. Yeah. So if anybody remembers, let us know in the comments. So
I think the conductor might be the one wearing the hat, but
Shit.
That's neither here nor there.
Shoot. I mean,
Anyway.
darn. Oh, man. Tommy, you got me all flustered. Oh my God. Okay. Anyway, Scott Perunovich not winning the Calder this year. Shame on me or Tommy, maybe. I don't know, both of us. Because he has a mysterious injury that is keeping him out of the lineup. A little concerning, maybe. I don't know. We're going to be getting into it in the final segment of today's episode. But first, I want to tell you guys about our good friends over at BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before as football continues its march through the playoffs, right to the big game in a couple weeks. BetOnline.net remains the best spot for all your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. And it's not just football. BetOnline has up-to-the-minute info on pro and college hoops, NHL, boxing, UFC, along with live real-time updates of current games. Don't wait to take advantage of all the new amazing offers available for the 2022 season. BetOnline, where the game starts, and we'll be right back. All right, Tommy. So a few months ago, you made the extremely bold claim that Scott Perunovich would become the best defenseman in the NHL this season.
That's not confirmed yet, by the way.
No, it is confirmed. It is.
We're gonna have to check the comments after.
No, it's 100% confirmed. I actually just took down that video where you said it, so anyone in the comments won't be able to find it. Oh, but I remember. So as much as I thought he would win the Calder, Tommy over here said, best defenseman in the NHL. Guess what? Neither of those things are going to happen. Maybe, unless he, recovers from injury really soon and then puts up 100 points in the next 40 games.
Hey, Jesus rose from the grave on the third day.
Oh, boy.
All I'm saying is Scott Perunovich.
Bro, remember when the Beatles compare themselves to Jesus? And then
I'm not comparing him to Jesus. I'm just saying
do that.
Crazier things have happened.
That's true. That you know what? That's true. That the Falcons blew a 28-3 lead.
I mean, how many points does Eagers have? 40?
Perunovich could do that. Anyways,
40 games left.
Tomfoolery aside, Scott Perunovich has been battling a mysterious upper body injury for the past few months and was just placed on injured reserve. Was he already on injured reserve? What?
So he was out. He was out of the lineup, and it was reported that he was hurt. I don't think they put him on injured reserve.
Okay.
Recently.
It's because it's been a lot of radio silence on Scott Perunovich, and then all of a sudden, Craig Berube comes out with these cryptic comments of, when he can play, he's a player. Oh, thanks, Craig. I had no idea. Just kidding.
When he plays hockey, he plays hockey.
He's a hockey player. No, but it was something cryptic along the lines of, when he can play, he's a player for sure. But right now, he can't play. Which, again, just seems like they're kind of trying to keep it under wraps, like the David Perron injury, where they're just, they don't really want to confirm or deny anything. All that they're saying is, not healthy right now. So the two sides of that are maybe Scott Perunovich is day-to-day right now, and we just don't know, sort of like how David Perron was there towards the end. Or maybe this is a kind of a long-term thing that is, going to shelve him for the rest of the season. I know you mentioned that he had shoulder surgery, worry that he could re-aggravate the shoulder. And then another thing we were talking about before the podcast is, this is prime development time for him. He was a 4-year player at Duluth. Sure, he tore it up there, but you want guys to get the NHL experience as early as possible for their development. He comes in at 24 this season, plays a little bit, looks pretty solid, and then goes out of the lineup. It's definitely a little concerning for the projection of Scott Perunovich of, will he ever reach that ceiling that we thought he had if he's spending his whole first NHL season rehabbing an injury.
Yeah, and I think the highs and the lows of this season already, and just I feel like are encapsulated with Scott Perunovich because, training camp, that's all anybody was talking about was this undersized D-man who's just slinging pucks around the ice, making it look easy. And for a guy to come in like him that I had so much hype, and had so many expectations, just kind of put his head down and go to work, I think is very impressive for anybody. But much less a guy that, like you said, was coming off of fresh shoulder surgery. So the Blues said, we're not going to bring him up right away. We're going to put him in the AHL and give him some games because he hasn't played games in such a long time. Dude starts going point per game as a D-man in the A, and they're like, okay, we should probably bring this guy up now because it's very obvious that, he's surpassed the level of play in the AHL. So they bring him up, and honestly, he didn't look bad with the Blues. Like there were a lot of times And it was like Jake Neighbors was kind of in the same conversation with his stint. It was like, it wasn't so much that he was going out there and like, it's not like highlight reel plays, right? But it's like the little things like the breakouts and
Right.
the stretch passes where you're like, okay, like
Mm.
flashes of brilliance, right? But then it's
Mhm.
also like holding your own in the defensive zone and like being accountable and uh, making sure that you're doing all the right things like away from the puck. And there wasn't really a time for either of them, maybe like once or twice where I was like, oh, like that one's on Neighbors or like, oh, that one's on Perunovich. You know, I didn't really find myself saying that a whole lot. So anytime you've got a young guy that makes their debut in the season and comes in and you don't have that problem, I think that's always a plus, and it speaks to the drafting capability of the St. Louis Blues and the kind of prospects that they have there. So, like you were alluding to, it is kind of concerning. I mean, you can look to as far as Vladimir Tarasenko to see the kind of impact that a shoulder injury and surgery has on a hockey player. But with a guy as young as Scott Perunovich, it's almost more, I don't want to say it's more concerning. I think when you think of his development, if you come across like a shoulder injury or shoulder surgery, it kind of just puts like a pause in it, right? Especially if it keeps like re-aggravating. And I don't think it's going to affect like the ceiling that he has or like the aspirations that he has as a hockey player. I think um, like if you want something bad enough, it's always going to be there, and you can always achieve greatness over any obstacle. And I don't think it's going to like extremely affect who he is as a hockey player. I believe he's going to overcome it, but just in terms of a development, I do think it could be just kind of like an obstacle, a hurdle for him to
Yep.
get over. And obviously, that always takes time. And for a guy like Prunovich, who, like you said, went to college and did the whole thing there, which is great. But typically, there are some players in the NHL that make their debut younger. Um, it just seems like time is of the essence here now and working against them as much as the shoulder might be.
Yeah, I mean, we can't predict the future, obviously, but a lot of that stuff is mental. When it comes to recovering from injury and just you gotta put in a lot of work. You gotta kind of relearn how to play hockey. In a lot of cases like that, because you got to retrain your muscles, all stuff like that. And Scott Brunovich is a guy that's, is familiar with adversity. Always been undersized, always been, the typical. We had him on the podcast. He told us, he was like, yeah, literally every level of hockey that I've ever played, someone has told me, yeah, you're too small. So that's something that he's been dealing with, for if he's been playing hockey for 20 years. And then to go an entire draft and not get picked, and then go out after that and win the Hobie Baker, like he is not someone this is going to be the first time that he's really had to sit down and evaluate his work ethic and his mentality when it comes to hockey. If he can get through it, he will. I think a good player will use something like this as fuel. And I think Scott Brunovich has that capability. He still is young, doesn't have a lot of mileage in terms of NHL experience. Even if he does, break out at 25, 26 in the next few seasons, still a lot of youth left in him, especially as a, undersized defenseman. A lot of value in the league right now for stuff like that. So I'm not worried in terms of the long term for Scott Perunovich. I'd be curious to see, in the coming months, especially like in the off season, if it comes out that he got surgery or something, we'll get a bit of a better picture on what he's actually dealing with. But I'm not too concerned in the long run. That being said, though, we are reaching the end of our time for today's episode. Tomorrow, we got a preview. Holy moly, we have a game to preview tomorrow night, Wednesday night. Make sure you stay tuned for that. The St. Louis Blues are taking on the struggling New Jersey Devils Thursday. So we'll be talking about that Wednesday and Thursday, depending on when the episodes come out. One of them might be a recap. They might both be previews. Who knows? The only way you'll find out is if you hit that follow or subscribe button on whatever podcast platform you're listening to us on. Hit that subscribe button on YouTube and that notification bell. Leave a comment like we were talking about earlier. If you want to point out that Tommy or I said something dumb or contradicted themselves. Now you can really just put it in our face and say, at 28:03 in today's episode, you said this when actually you said this earlier. I don't know, whatever. Make us look silly. We love reading the comments. We're going to try to be going through hearting all the comments, replying to you guys. It's a lot of fun. We love doing this YouTube thing. So make sure you subscribe to us there at Locked On Blues. Subscribe or follow us on all of our social medias. Locked On Blues on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and Facebook. Follow me on Twitter at Josh Hyman NHL. Follow Tommy at TWelcher15. Thanks so much for listening. And as always, let's go Blues.